Birth and Rampage of the Hulk. Like every other day, Naruto is again being chased through the streets of Konoha for something he didn't do. Everything all started when he again tried to enter another shop. He was immediately thrown out. However, what followed are everyone start throwing things his way. Since then, he had been running for hours. It was as if the whole village is against him. In the beginning, he can still outrun them thanks to his smaller frame and nimble movements, but after some time he started to feel the exhaustion. As for the villagers, many of his original pursuers had either given up or stopped to catch their breath. However, it was like a line of tag-ins as new ones decides to join in while the old ones give up.
To make matters worse, he had also Chunins join in and he is running out of places to hide. Without anyone recognizing, they all ended up in Orochimaru's abandoned lab and into a room with a giant tank of green liquid. The villagers were too focused on their demon target they neglect to check where they were.
Naruto may be young, but he is not as stupid as everyone made him out to be. To the local prankster, one must learn something after regularly being chased by everyone. Therefore, as soon he enters the room, he knew where all the best hiding places were. Unfortunately, it was the top of large green tank. With the bright green colors draw their attention as well as the hazed and dark room as cover, no one would think to look where he is. Also, due to the tank's height and size, unless you have a way to climb to its height, it is unlikely they will see him. His only problem is getting to the top, and hopefully somewhere stable enough to hold him. To his luck, he found an old and rusted ladder behind the tank. Without even a hesitation, he was already halfway near the top. He was just in time too, as he broke off the only way up right before anyone enters the room. As long as he stay low and keep from drawing attention, he should be able to hide it out. Unknown to him, directly below him was a failed experiment research for making ultimate soldiers. Orochimaru was a brilliant student of Sandaime. Hence the reason the Hokage had high hopes for him. Unfortunately for that reason, it was also the very reason that he is now a traitor to his village. True to the Snake Sannin's objective, he had successfully created a new drug for making super soldiers. By injecting the substance into his test subjects' bloodstreams, the subject all gained temporary superhuman strengths for a short time. The reason for its partial success was because none of his subjects survived the complete process.
He had planned to make hundreds if not thousands super soldiers, hence the giant tank. Since his experiments were partially successful, he thought he had the formula down but needed stronger test subjects. He was however wrong. Every human experiment went horribly wrong and turned them into uncontrollable mutants. It almost killed him. He concluded that it was due to weaknesses of his human subjects. Unfortunately, he did not come to this conclusion until at least a few more of his experiments went wrong, where he uses people with bloodlines. In the end, he gave up and moved on to other research. Later he had to abandon everything because his experiments alerted the Hokage. However, surprisingly, this lab was not discovered until now.
That was until our favorite blonde hero decides that it was a good idea to hide in it. Whether it was a blessing or a curse, Naruto still not know to this day. Whatever the Snake Sannin missing, it seems he may be able to find within the orange-clad ninja to be. Back in the ruined laboratory, no one seemed to able to find him, and they began to get weary of where they were. The longer they stay, the more they feel they shouldn't even be here, but they were desperate. Today is the day they no longer tolerate the demon's behavior, and will teach it a lesson they should have done long ago. They were so close too, since they cornered it to this building. With others covering the exits, they knew the monsters trapped like a rat, hence their insistency of their continuing search. Though our blonde may or may not believed in fate, but he seems to be destined to fall in the tank. Just as a villager moved to an angle where he thought he can be discovered, our blonde must have stepped into an opening and fell into the green stuff below. Whatever he fell into, Naruto knew immediately he was in trouble. The liquid not only is burning him, it actually seems to be leaking into his body through his skin. He splashes around for a bit, hoping for something he can grab hold onto, but sadly, there is nothing. It didn't take long for him to start losing conscious. The last thing he could blurry make out was his hands turning green and growing into enormous sizes. He tried to scream, but his body already submerged completely into the green stuff, so no one can hear him. As for the villagers, they were startled by the fall and finally recognizing the demon child they were chasing. Seeing he is in agony, they were pleased and watched as the demon continues to struggle. They spent years trying to make it miserable and eventually kill it accidentally without the Hawkage blaming them. Now it seems they will finally get their wish. Today they shall bear witness the end of the demon as it slowly drown itself. That is until someone noticed something seemed wrong. Another had noticed that the green substances appears to have diminished. At first they thought someone had unplugged the tank trying to save the monster. They believed the monster did not deserve to be saved as they told themselves.
Once they realized all the green stuff were nearly gone, they came see the tiny blonde they tried to bully no longer in the tank. In its place they found a giant shadow they can only see the outline of. Curiously they got closer to make out a humanoid figure slowly getting up from its couching position. To their horror it was something very big, very green and very angry.
One thing they recognized was the leftover of an orange jacket. What's left of it, dangling on this thing. They can just make out the light whisker scars on its face before shocked wake by the monster smashing onto the glass tank. Lucky for them it had not break instantly. Only then did everyone realize how much trouble they are in, and remembered how they needed their legs. For civilians, they never understood the meaning of survival as they all ran as one in one direction, toward the exit. So naturally the big guy just plow through his tormentors regardless he know them or not. Many were crushed or broken waiting to be picked up. Others were sent flying like bowling pins. At the same time, the whole village were on red alert as during its transformation, Kyuubi's chakra was felt. Apparently, it seems whatever Naruto had caught himself in had caused a huge clash between it and Kyuubi's chakra. Thinking that Kyuubi is escaping, the whole ninja battalion arrived along together with the Hawkage. They were more than shocked when the horde of civilians ran towards them, followed by a very big green giant on their tail. Though the very big, very green guy is angry, it stopped some distance from the ninjas.
While the ninjas were freaked, they are well trained. Even for something they never seen before, they fanned out and prepared for their next orders. It is not often that you see a 10-foot giant emerge from the outskirt of your village. The situation is both strange and ill-prepared even for the Hokage. For the next few seconds the two parties, the size of the giant probably party size, were silent as neither knew what to do with the other. The tension broke off when one of the survivors screamed that this was the Kyuubi setting off both the green giant and ninjas. Hearing that, the Hokage widened his eyes and immediately commanded his forces to try and subdue the creature. He can worry about the cure later, but first he will need to stop whatever this is.
Before he too head into battle, he didn't forget to order his ninjas to round up all the villagers that started all this, and have them sent to Ibuki. He will read the report later once he and his ninjas managed to subdue this new Naruto. Even with 300 elite members of the village, they did not have it easy to do what their leader had requested. Do they even have a cell big enough to hold it in? Of course they aren't about to question the Hawkage.
Starting with the taijutsu team, with their speed and physical attributes they should be able to fight brawn with brawn. Unfortunately, they soon found why it was a mistake. Not only was the giant big, it is also both very tough and very strong. Seeing how the big guy just scratched at their strongest attack, it was an insult to their specialties.
The true hurts, each of them had to face reality and switch to different tactics. It is too dangerous to fight hand-to-hand even when their opponent is not a fighter. The way it swings its fist is already a threat, not to mention its reach. A normal swing, any normal taijutsu user could just duck or step back, but against this giant you have to throw yourself out of its way. However, these ninjas were not called combat experts for nothing. Since they could not knock out the giant, they switched to the alternative and tried to bring it down by overpiling it. As awkward as it looked, it was the only way they have without seriously injuring their target. They were about to secure it until the Hulk exploded from beneath them. Not literally exploded, but from everyone's point of view you can forgive them for their mistake. With an unknown force, the giant just bounced back up, overthrowing all ninjas on top of him. Having already been annoyed being surrounded by small people, then attacked would make anyone mad. The Hulk is now very angry, Besides the facial expression, Green Giant also screamed his thoughts out. Hulk now angry? Giving the ninjas a powerful glare this time, he will retaliate, catching the nearest off guard and sending him out of the battle. It was a big step for getting to know one another. At least now they know what to call it instead of just Green Guy or Giant. With both sides fired up, the Taijutsu team and the Hulk battled on. The hand-to-hand experts had their pride and spirits as they once again teamed up and switched to using ninja wires. It didn't take the Hulk long to find himself tangled in almost invisible wires, but using his full body strength he was able to rip the lines off him. Some ninjas had tried using the environment to their advantage, but with its power, it pulled the tree off its roots and sending it to opposite ninja team. Thankfully, the elite ninjas uses chakra to defend themselves, otherwise many would have been dead by now. Having watched and analyzed the Hulk's fighting powerness, the Nara, Yamanaka and Akamichi team tried capturing it by using their clan techniques. Unfortunately, they were unsuccessful. All it did was mildly confuse the big guy, and it just shrugged it off like it was nothing. They never felt helpless on a battlefield before. With even the best of 3 clans combined, they felt like ants trying to subdue an elephant. No matter how many tactics the Naras have, subtly the Yamanaka try to sneak into the mind, or even the strengths of Akamichi, they were useless when it comes to absolute power.
United with all their clan members, they joined the Hyugas in hope to slow it down and shut down its chakra points. Again it ended in failure. The Hyugas for the first time felt their prized Jukin failed them. It was quite a shock, but they learned that with the giant's size they needed something equal in size to stop its chakra points. Nevertheless, it is a blow for them as they stood by and couldn't do anything since all their techniques centered around the same technique they pride themselves in.
In Konoha, when all else fails, you can count on the Akamichi because they can literally hold the line for you. With their abilities to enlarge their body parts into giants of themselves, they were experts for stopping or halting any forces. They may not have eyes like the Hyugas, nor can they do powerful jutsus or even extraordinary combat skills. Instead, they overcome them with size. In fact, the Akimichi planned to use their expansion jutsus to overcome size with a much bigger size. However, little did they realize until today their size can be overcome by strength. For the first time, they were surprised when someone much smaller lifted and threw them against their own. Some Akimikis were surprised when the small giant leaped on their face and punched them with enough force to break their jaws. Seeing this, the ninjas again switches to ninjutsu, hoping to get an upper hand. Maybe with something new and surprise they can give it some damage. However, instead of causing it injury, the jutsus just bounced off its muscles and annoyed it more. It roared in anger and backhanded some jutsus back to the casters, causing explosions and debris everywhere. Having always been on the receiving end of what he considered as annoying attacks, he decided to retaliate with a heavy stump, creating cracks to the ground and causing minor earthquakes. It stopped almost every ninja in battle as they tried to gain back their balance. Angrily, it dug its fingers into solid earth and flips chunks of it towards the ninjas. It was like a wave of earth heading their way as if it was an earth jutsu. The experienced ninjas knew they had to fall back and regroup, but with the Hulk angry, they were hard-pressed just to get out of its way. Even everyone here were elites. They were all having the same trouble reorganizing when the Hulk start causing area effect damage. They could not run or leave too far, for reasons they don't want it end in the middle of the village. Hence, they were forced to stick to a close formation, and at the same time avoiding the Hulk's rampage.
From the weapons division, Hayate thought it was a good idea to draw its attention by stepping forward and unsheathing his prized sword. Somehow he was successful for a while as the big guy paused and watched him perform his kata while swinging his blade around. It worked and it gave others time to regroup while he makes light jabs on his target. He wouldn't dare get too close as the green guy attacking range is at least double his.
With his sword as shield and ward against the Hulk, the giant was a little weary even if the most damage it did was just a paper cut. Sadly, the small victory was short-lived as the Naruto green giant came up with a counter by uprooting the nearest tree and swing it like Hayate did. One ninja couldn't help and tell his captain that the green guys were bigger, earning him a glare from his captain. Hayate didn't have time to reprimand his team as he had to run from the tree coming his way. He had to give it to the Hulk. Even without years of Kenjutsu training, its attacks were formidable. There was an old saying from the weapons lore: an inch longer is an inch stronger. Just how much strong Hayate isn't going to stand there and find out. The situation is just plain ridiculous. Who needs a sword or its techniques when you have a 16-foot-long tree in your hand? He had to duck and roll a few times as well as coming to some close calls before making it back to the others. He did a double take as everyone were glaring at him. He had just made the situation worse. Right this moment, the Hulk just became more troublesome as he uses his newfound weapon like a bat, and made his own version of home runs out of the local ninjas. Luckily, most of the so-called ninjas used chakra to defend themselves so they didn't die either from impact or the drop from their trip. Either way, they were out of the game. They had already tried spraying the big guy with kunais and shurikens, but like all attacks so far, they only bounced off its big muscles. So far, they had only managed to increase their own casualty numbers, and still no way to contain the problem. It was almost like the QB scenario again. They were lucky, no one died so far. While the tree is lethal in the Hulk's hands, they realized that they are immune from their jutsus like the Hulk. In hope to destroy the tree, several ninja cast their fire jutsus to burn it to ash, taking away the giant's newfound interest. Unfortunately, like they have been doing all afternoon, it always backfires. True enough. Instead of running away a moving tree, they are now running from a moving tree that is on fire. The heat from it had burnt many ninjas that were too slow to escape from it. As for Hayate, he was not so lucky because the Hulk seems to be still gunning for him. After a while, it seems to got annoyed and threw the entire thing at him. That's when he realized instead part of the tree he was fighting it became the whole tree. This would be the talk of his fellow ninjas if he survived. Konoha Anbu captain got beat by a tree and buried by it. His only consolation was that he was not the only one, and even more humiliating, they were Konoha's elites. There were not many Genjutsu experts in the elite team, but they tried to pitch in to buy others some time. At first, they thought it was working as the green giant was disoriented, but it was short-lived as the giant shakes it off in a few seconds. Luckily, they didn't have to figure out why, as there are some Hyugas on the field. With their Byakugan, they can see their Genjutsu were like mosquitoes trying to change the flow of a raging river. It all seemed to make sense. Genjutsu is a technique for manipulating another's chakra for it to work. With the giant's chakra network like a raging river, it would need at least 10 Tsunade caliber ninjas for it to work effectively. The fact that most Genjutsu users have small reserves is another matter, so it would be near impossible to divert the Hulk's enormous chakra flow. Nevertheless, it was all these ninja can do, so they tried a few times, even if the giant still shrugged it off like a bug on him. At least it served as a distraction, giving others time to get out of its way. Unfortunately, like other jutsus, the same technique seemed to weaken its effectiveness over time, and the Hulk is less bothered by it. It seems its body automatically built an immunity against it. This, of course, was confirmed by the Hyugas. Even worse, it seemed to pinpoint whom was annoying him, and they were gifted with a ton of boulder for their effort. Unfortunately, the said rock is at least the size of small house. All this time, the third Hokage had not been idle. He had been analyzing the giant, since he got the information from the villagers that it was Naruto. There must be a way for him to stop the rampage and save the blonde. After a while, he picked up a pattern. It seems that the giant only responds to the ones attacking. Maybe, just maybe, he can still get to Naruto. Besides, it seems that his ninjas were no match, and the giant only gets angrier. Immediately, he gave the order to retreat and tell them to back down to a non-threatening distance. True enough, seeing the ninjas back down, the giant calmed down, but still angry as it searches for further threat. The Hokage made his way to the mountain of muscle, trying to look non-threatened as possible. He wasn't sure if he is recognized or not, but you can't accomplish anything without taking action. Cautiously, he spoke the name, Naruto. Somehow the giant seems to recognize him and said the small word, GG? Then he collapsed before the Hawkage.
Knowing Naruto is still in there somewhere, he commanded his ninjas to bring the giant somewhere secure. They put him in the Anbu Secure Center, at least where the medical center is. He was securely strapped down while the doctor tried and diagnosis what and how midget blonde turned into a green walking muscle. At least Sandame hoped for a cure or a way to reverse the effect. It wasn't until a few days later they have something to report.
Disclaimer. Just to note, I do not own Naruto and this fanfiction is made only as a hobby of mine. Authors. Note. Thank you for review and also others that read the chapter. I am happy that some readers find it interesting and continue to support the story. In fact, I had already a chapter ready at the time, but only took time for cleaning and rereading until I am happy to release it. I hope this chapter will answer questions that was on everyone's minds. Council crackdown. Having the Hulk secured, the Hawkage needs to visit the T, in hope to get the full story. Normally he would have waited in his office, but this time both Naruto and over 300 ninjas were injured. It isn't something he can just sit idly nor forgiving such act. If it was an invasion or coming from a Rouge ninja, he can relate. However, the main culprit were his own people. While most of them were civilians, but some were his own ninjas. After today, there will be changes, he promised himself, and Konoha had better be prepared. Angered at what he had to see to his forces and his surrogate grandson, he stormed to Anbu secure stations. It wasn't every day that the leader of the village came into the secret Anbu. Sites the ambush located at the entrance was lost what to do. However, seeing how angry the Hawkage was, they wisely stay out of its way. The Sandame ignored the guards and continued his way to his trusted shinobi Ibuki. It is about time the interrogation expert deliver him his report. Ibuki had more than enough time to do his job. He wanted to know why he and his force had to spend half the day fighting a muscle-bounded giant, and more important, how Naruto changed into that monstrosity. Luckily, it didn't take Ibuki long to crack the civilians. All it needed was one look from the scarred interrogator. While the ninjas require little more persuasive measures before they spill everything. Together with the findings from the newly discovered lab, it didn't take long before the Hawkage to put everything together. Based on what he can see from the lab, he can easily see it belongs to his traitorous student. It almost had his name written over it, especially it was the Sandame that trained him. The way where everything is positioned and where equipments were stored, the Hawkage can easily recognize his student's work. Though whatever he was making was destroyed in the mayhem, but thanks to the state whatever Naruto was in, he can deduce what Orochimaru had been doing. Thankfully to the remains of his notes, the experiments were unsuccessful. As named the professor, he had his suspicion why Naruto, the only survivor due to the early outburst of Kyuubi's chakra. However, he won't make any assumptions until a medical report is given to him. Once he is ready, he summoned his council, and this time he will put them in their place. Unfortunately for the inattentive ones, they will be getting a waken-up call. While the rest whom had seen the eyes of their Hawkage, they were more prepared to whatever bombshell the Hawkage will drop. As expected, following the report of the incident, the civilian council were ready to blame the boy for it. Too bad for them, the Hawkage had zeroed in on the loudest counselor and asked him how he came to this conclusion. Also to remind them that there are in addition 300 injured elites whom will be hearing his reason, as well as the person to explain to Daimyo, that in turn to the rest of the elemental nations. Any false claims or half-truths will result in embarrassment to the Fire Daimyo, which in turn to the village. Thanks to the cautious warning from the Hawkage, the counselor had seemed to picked up on the underlining message. Whatever he says now will be brought against as evidence and put him on the stand. Other counselors too also picked up the hidden message and too quietened down instead of throwing quick accusations. Again, the Hawkage remind his council that if they don't have any knowledgeable advice, they better keep their mouth shut or be forever thrown out of any meeting. It seems that the message is quite clear. The Hawkage will only listen to their advice and not order, so they better watch their mouth for future reference. They may not have ninja training to see underneath the underneath, but they aren't stupid to get on the council seat, so they sat and listened to what the professor had to say. Instead of the report, the Hawkage went into a historical background of ninja villages. To most members of the council, they were surprised about the tailed beasts because they were originally given to other nations, by none other than the Shodai Hawkage Hashirama Senju. The idea was to promote peace, but instead it started the ninja wars that they knew in history. Also, the fact that Konohagakure was labeled the strongest ninja village isn't because of the Hokages, but the Kyuubi. Konoha had always had possession of Kyuubi since the first Hawkage, but due to mishap it was released. Another correction before anyone can proclaim its danger. The Kyuubi is not an animal, it is a natural chakra form, thus cannot be destroyed. With that explanation, the Sandaime brought out a clear jar and showed them how sealing really work on the chakra conduct. Using Ryo as Kyuubi chakra and the clear jar as the child, the jar was filled with Ryo. The purpose of a Jinchuriki is solely to hold the tailed beast, and since it is mainly chakra, the container himself can manifest its ability. However, like when humans first harvest fire, it can be useful and also devastatingly harmful. Before the council can voice their objection, the Sandaime again thrown them another reality bomb. Truth is, both Iwagakure and Kumogakure had already 2 Jinchurikis each. Iwagakure's Jinchurikis are both at least veteran Jonin warriors because he had met them during the last war. In Kumogakure, one was the future Raikage's brother while the other is already a strong trained genin. To the horror of the council, both villages were opposing villages with well-trained Jinchurikis. For their information, their Yondaime Hokage too had encountered the Kumo brothers. But it was a draw at the time. Also to note that Killer Bee was still a Jinchuriki in training when he stopped the Yondaime from killing his brother. As Hokage pointed out, some of the present councillors can testify against his words since they too were present at the time. They all agreed that Jinchurikis were quite resilient on the field. To the shameful looks on the civilian council, they should already know that because they had seen it in Naruto. Looking back at the council room, the Hokage nodded, seeing they finally understood the seriousness of the situation. Getting the rest of the council's attention, he informed them, however, should the Jinchuriki finally killed or broken, it would be similar to the jar before him as he smashes the jar, spilling the Ryo all over. Like the Ryo spilt, the Kyuubi chakra would dissipate but reform later, though there hasn't been any documented event of such case. However, there had always been 9-tailed beasts in history, and still has been since, hence it is not difficult to deduce no one has yet to kill one. Thanks to the physical demonstration, the council seemed to be more accepted to the explanation. Finally, coming back to the current incident, he let them know that their Jinchuriki is now in coma. Whether he will wake up or not, the medics in charge was not able to safely give an answer for. He then gave his council the report of their discovery and why Naruto turned out as he did. The only good news was no one's gravely injured in that incident. In the end, he added another warning to the civilians. The Hokage may not have directly accused them, but they knew the silent order when they hear one. Whether Naruto Uzumaki wake up or not, the village will change their view of the Jinchuriki. Since the incident were started by the civilian members, thus all damages and medical bills will be paid by the civilian treasury. Some wanted to protest, but the glare from the Hokage was enough to tell him they were already in deep shit. Before the meeting comes to an end, the Hokage told them they better wise up with this new information, because he wouldn't send his ninjas to clean up their mess anymore. Someone had tried to sneak in and finished the job, but ended in failure. They were caught red-handed as they woke up from the knockout due to the giant turn in his sleep. It ripped the strap holding his hand and crushing the intruders, knocking them out. Had they read the report, they would have realized their plan wouldn't have worked anyway. Orochimaru's drug was too potent, it kills off any foreign substance entering its host. Besides, they would have realized that their syringe is too weak to be used on the giant. Of course, they were told that before they were sent for their interrogation. Seeing how locking it down was useless, they had a few ambu to watching the big kid. From what they have found, the kid was just sleeping and very unlikely he will start another rampage. Also, based on the remaining substance and notes left behind in the lab, the investigation team was able to piece together what they believed happened.
They too concluded that the formula that the snake Sanin had developed were likely a failure. That is if it was used on any normal human beings. However, due to Kyuubi and the Naruto kid, he was able to survive the initial process. This was also the reason why the demon's chakra was felt.
Not only that, a small dose would have made a super soldier as it was designed to do. Thanks to Kyuubi's influence, Naruto was able to absorb the whole tank, hence his physique. He is literally pumped full of this stuff.
On the other hand, somehow and somewhere within Naruto his body is trying to adapt to the changes. Days and weeks of tests proves that his body is starting to stabilize. Hence, the reason for his unconsciousness is his body is still trying to adjust to the complete process. The once called professor guessed that it was probably the Uzumaki genes that is doing the work. After all, that clan is still a mystery, just like the Rinnegan, especially with their longevity.
It may take weeks, months, or even years to fully adjust to the changes. Sadly, no doctor can conclude to the Sandam when the blonde will wake up, or in what state he will be in. Meanwhile, as the Hulk sleeps, there had been a few more attempts. Sadly, for their consolation, they were both successful and failure attempts. Successful to do what they wanted to do, but failure to kill it. It seems that the word invincible seems to have a meaning. Some Chunin had managed to infiltrate and tried to assassinate the sleeping giant. When the Anbu finally spotted him, they were too late. Everything just stopped when Giant was stabbed. Pulling back his weapon to defend himself, they found their weapons were bent. The two guards also looked at one another with an unbelievable look. Before they could do anything, the Chunin took out another kunai and tried a few times, hoping to penetrate its tough skin. That is, until he was swag away like a fly, and into the medical cupboard while the guard's sweat dropped. The sorry Chunin had several syringes and scalpels logged in his face and body. They didn't even do anything, and it seems that they weren't needed anyway. Of course, there were a few more cases after that. That's when they realized that this new Naruto is quite durable. Not that the Anbu stopped protecting the giant, but it was quite entertaining to see the assassin thought they had succeeded only to fail in the end. Disclaimer. Just to note, I do not own Naruto and this fanfiction is made only as a hobby of mine. Author's note. Thanks for the reviews. I must also apologize to the reviewer asking if Hulk is permanent, and I said that it would be revealed in last chapter. Sorry, it is this chapter that I have the answer. It was an interesting question anyway, because I thought the transformation deal was always the full package and attraction to the Hulk. Anyway, luckily I have this chapter written and was just doing some last-minute edit. Hope you like it. The Hulk in Konoha. To the relief of the Hawkage, it took several months before Naruto was awake and shrank back to his normal size. It was also quite funny because it took nearly 20 ninjas to move him to a supposed secret location. Of course, when you have that many Anbus carrying a big green giant to the secret place, it is no longer a secret. The other problem was it wouldn't fit into any door, so they had to remodel just for the big guy. Since then, he still revert back to the Hulk from time to time. It was later discovered that it was his emotions that was the likely trigger to such transformation. Whenever he is either in shock, surprise, and most obvious of all angry, he would transform to his giant form. Thanks to the incident, the village had been warned beforehand, so it is no longer a secret. Just like he had done during the council meeting, the Hokage also addressed to the village. This was a byproduct of their sins, because as of now, the Hulk will walk the village, and they will be on their own if they try to provoke it. The Hokage also mentioned that even 300 elite ninjas were no match to the giant, so they better think twice if they really want to bring out the big guy. However, even to a well-informed Jonin, Naruto's other half still intimidates them. So the first few times, a few civilians were treated for shock, and a few panic issues were raised. Luckily, no one attacked him, so the Hulk just went his merry ways. It seems the Hulk is like a different entity, as he didn't seem to have the same agenda as his other half. Based on numbers of observations, they found the two were quite independent from one another. At one point, they knew Naruto was heading to the Hokage Tower, but after the transformation, he seemed lost at where he was going, and went a different direction. However, there were exceptions, especially when they were hungry. They seemed to share the same place in mind, Ichiraku. It was quite a shock when the Hulk stepped in for the first time. Both Tucci and Ayame were speechless. Still, thanks to both the Hokage's announcement and Naruto's faint whisker marks, they were not too frightened. They managed to question if he is Naruto, and the Hulk only responded with simple demand, ramen. Somehow, besides the Hokage, both the ramen chef and his daughter had a special place within Naruto. Scientists too concluded that deep down both Naruto and the Hulk are the same person. It was only due to their transformation that their conscious were not aligned. But it was only a theory they came up with. Anyway, both the Anbus and Hokage were happy no harm came to the two civilians, because they were the only people besides the Hokage to treat Naruto like a friend. Since then, the Ikirakus got themselves a Hulk-size ramen bowl that contained 10 times the amount of ramen than normal ones. Though there is not Hulk-sized chopsticks, as the big guy just grabbed the bowl and threw all the ramen in his mouth. Aside from the Ichiraku, things were never the same within Konoha. There is a true meaning to the saying, "It is better to be with the devil than in its path." Some villagers that are too stupid to understand the phase had to find out the hard way. Only difference is, they may feel that the term devil doesn't do the Hulk justice. One drunk smashed his bottle at the blonde kid as he walked past. He didn't expect the once harmless child to suddenly transformed into a 2-meter towering muscular green giant. In the end, it is what Ninja Report dubbed as Naruto went Hulk over the drunken villager. The others nearby had to watch in horror as the giant smashed him with a nearby bench, followed by repeated stomped into the ground. No one dared to intervene or said anything, hopefully not to draw its attention. Somehow they seemed to understood the true warning from the Hokage. After seeing the Hulk in action, it is no big surprise anyone would think that it is unstoppable. Especially when they are only civilians who were also deprived from their everyday real ninja action. So when the Hulk appeared, it was like the bogeyman they tell to their children came to life. To them, it would be no different to seeing the QB, but just a different monster. As the saying goes, seeing is believing. Though they knew the blonde contains the QB, but in their minds the Hulk is now the real monster. It would be no surprise some thinks the Hulk is even more powerful than the Fox. After all, most civilians had never actually seen the Fox, and only heard from rumors. The Hokage may not know it, but the Hulk is slowly replacing the image of QB thanks his constant reappearance. They may never get over the fact that QB killed their family members, nor will they forget it is Naruto that housed it. However, with the gigantic Hulk's presence, it slowly overshadows the Fox. In the villagers' minds, the boy no longer representing the QB. Instead, it is of the Hulk. Anyway, back to the scene of the drunk being stomped. After a while, the big guy had enough and moved on, but not without giving it one more stamp. Everyone gave it a wide berth and away from its path, while the Hulk just ignores them. Its wide size and body had to knock down a few trees and buildings as it strolled to wherever he is going. Of course, there is a few that just annoys the guy, and it was leveled. Fortunately, it was only some old abandoned building. It happened in the past, so it is no deal for everyone to move out of the giant's way. The obvious reason the Hulk towers over them at least twice their height, and the other due to rumors. Most of them had already heard the rumors of a dead Nukenin that got dragged while stuck beneath its foot. The poor bastard must have been hiding under somewhere before the Hulk walked over him. It is an ultimate humiliation for any ninja, and the only identification was the scratched headband. To the relief of the ninjas whom had managed dug the drunk out, he was still alive. Slowly everyone came out, and at least checked the idiot that would provoke a walking muscle. Some kids thought it was cool, the way it handles the drunk, and they all knew who was the real villain. It seems that the Hulk has more positive impression than the QB. Besides, they never did like the drunk, as he had not just harassed the Jinchuriki, but many other villagers. Well, he was still alive, as he's still able to mourn a little. It took some time for some genin to dug the moron out. During his hospital stay, he still had part of the footprint on him and still wears the shocked expression on his face. Whether it's from the transformation or the foot that flattened him, no one knows. No charge was pressed, since it was the fool of the victim that brought it upon himself. Since the rampage, the Hokage had Naruto strictly watched at all times. Not for his safety, they were only there to pacify Naruto should he turn into the big guy again. Saidane was surprised how often the Hulk appeared, and that the village is still standing. He still recalled the effort it took to stop the Hulk. In fact, he had to remind himself that they didn't really stop it. It was only because of Naruto that they were able to control it. The Hulk's appearance had become a normal occurrence, as it will pop up from time to time. Everyone had learned that it doesn't really bother you if you don't bother it. However, the Green Giant attracted many village kids, causing many to often hang out with him. At least the kids were smarter than the adults. They had saw how the Hulk had flattened the last guy, so they never tried to provoke it. It all started as kids started to follow it at a distance. Every day the children followed and watched what it would do next. In their eyes, the Hulk is strong and cool with a no mercy, no bullshit attitude. Soon they turned from admiration to hero worship, as it became a hot topic between families, as kids like to talk about what they have seen. Usually about how the Hulk beat up a bully. After a while, even the adults sees the Hulk as misunderstood giant instead of a monster. Small events like how the Hulk stopped an out-of-controlled food cart with a single hand like it was nothing. While the kids followed in the distance, at first the Hulk ignores them. However, it does not mean that it was not curious. Somehow, the children has a positive effect on the giant. Perhaps it was due to their innocence, or that kids were always happy, which may have calmed the angry expression he always had on him. There are some that still thinks that it is a monster and tried to forbid their children nearing it. One time it got out of hand when the father showed up and forcefully took his daughter away. As the girl wanted to stay and have fun with her friends, the father got really angry and slapped her. Shocked was an understatement. The Hulk was immediately angry and flung the adult away. It was ready to flatten the father until the girl held the Hulk back. Though the girl could not have the strength to stop the Hulk, but it seems that the giant is able to control himself. Seeing the tears still running down her cheeks, the Hulk calmed himself, all in full view of the villagers. They too were shocked. They too had known that the Hulk is quite unstoppable. After a while, the Hulk gently took both the child and father and leaped to the hospital. The staff were weary of the giant but took the man away for treatment. Looking at the girl, it said with a bad dialect slowly, "Mara, listen, father, family, important, family happy, Hulk happy." Though not perfect, but the child seemed to understand as she nods her head with little tears. While the Hulk watches, he put his massive hand over the girl as to comfort her. Turning back to the man that was being taken away, he pointed at him. "Father hurt? Mara, father hospital." Again, not what one expects, but easily understood. Not wanted to stay any longer, the giant leaped away in one jump and disappeared into the village. It wasn't until a few days later that the children found the big giant. To his surprise, the girl Mara was there too. That small exchange had convinced the father to let his child to join with the others. It just took a couple of days to find the Hulk. Disclaimer: ninjas and nuke nins. Since the episode involving the little girl and her father, the civilian population starts to show signs of their acceptance. It also helped after another event that the giant rescued some kids from some vicious bear that came out of nowhere. With so many children as witness, news spread fast and almost all Konoha heard the story. Obviously to the ninjas, they knew the giant could have handled it easy, but to normal civilians it's not as believable. However, with Hulk's huge frame, they can probably imagine the scene. With children exaggerating the fight, they all got various images how the Hulk wrestled with the animal. However, one fact is consistent in all stories: the Hulk beat the crap out of the bear. Since then, many children starts hanging around the giant. Besides being safe, they also have other benefits. To the kids, the Hulk is like 2-for-1 package deal. On one hand, they have the original Naruto. Aside from talking to him about what it was like turning into a green giant, the blonde is fun to have around. Other than on occasions playing with them, he also tells them funny stories. The Hulk, on the other hand, it usually sleeps around, but the kids find him fascinating because of its size. It's normal for children, as they always find things extraordinary interesting, They like watching the giant in action and what it would do next. However, deep in their little minds, they would agree that the most amazing thing was the transformation. Hanging around either the Hulk or Naruto, they get to watch one way or the other transformations. It's either the hunk shrinking back to Naruto or Naruto blowing up to the Hulk. Both were fascinating to watch. Unfortunately, due to his lack of control, he couldn't show them willingly, thus, they resort to hanging around him to see it. Even his own sneeze would suddenly turn him into his alter ego. It was the event most kids had been anticipated because each change is often different from another. The ambus tailing him had seen it many times, but even the good doctors were dumbfounded and had no explanation. Just his sudden sneeze would blow him up like a balloon. The Hulk would appear and look around dumbly like he was wondering how he got here. His actions caused rounds of laughter and giggles, and the giant would just scratch his head not knowing why, causing another rounds of laughter. As for Naruto, the lonely boy seems to enjoy hanging around crowds, regardless what age they are. Having lived on his own for so long makes him crave for attention, and having children laugh at his jokes just makes it more fulfilling. Hence, he was quite eccentric when he tells them of his past adventures and pranks, thus resulting in many laughter and small giggles from girls. The joys of others seem to have positive effect on him, so he is quite happy when some of them calls him boss. The Hulk, though, no one knows what he is thinking, but the giant didn't seem to mind the small creatures, children, hanging around him. In fact, most of the time he was more curious than annoyed, as they never or could really harm him. To another watcher, it was like seen from documentary channels where bird sits on top of wild rhinos. Sometimes little girls starts making flower crowns and have him unknowingly wear it the whole day. It caused many amusements within the village as well as ninjas, and the Hulk just ignores them. Hence, the Hulk received many more positive views, as long as no one's stupid enough irk the giant. Of course, there were still few cases from die-hard QB haters, as they think it was all a trick. However, as time goes on, fewer people would openly show their distaste. Not because they finally accepted him, but because they were being ridiculed by their own fellow villagers. It was like poking your fingers in fire and complain that you got burnt. The same logic applies to the Hulk, as others would say, you brought it on yourself. Aside from the lack of success, they also receives punishment. In addition, they must also cover the cost of all damages, including ones made by the Hulk. Thanks to that rule, fewer and fewer villagers tried anything stupid because of the hefty bill. Anyway, as a result, Konoha had never looked better because of the new modifications as well as improvements. It was also a good thing some of the incidents were caused by rich merchants and civilians, as the Hawkage can lawfully confiscate their assets for the improvements of their village. Since the first rampage and the civilian council having to pay for the damages, they seldom stick their head where it doesn't concern them. Hence the reason why these rich merchants and influential villager received no backing from them. There were still a few other extreme cases, like hiring outside help for the deeds. Unfortunately for both parties, due to missing details of their target turning into a massive green giant, they were not prepared to deal with it. Even when they do believe the stories, they will never prepare for the real thing. Seeing the towering giant is one thing, however, seeing one that was also unstoppable, and you can't do a thing, is another. In the end, the Ambu had to ply his hands open to release the nins, because the Hulk had forgotten he still had a ninja in his hand. On the other hand, since the Hulk's first appearance, both Naruto and the Hulk received many positive responses from ninjas. Most of them came from clans, as they were quite impressed by his other half. Lately, they discovered an interesting theory. Somehow, having Naruto on your good side seemed to carry it over onto the Hulk. At least the giant is no longer glaring at them anymore. Instead, they were just indifferent stares. After all, Naruto is the Hulk, and the big guy seemed to consider Konoha ninjas as neutral. Particularly with the Akimichi clan, they were very impressed with his alter ego. Not only were they not afraid of it, instead they wished for another fight. Often they joked with Naruto when they get their wish, hopefully he wouldn't bash them too hard like last time. This seemed to earn some bonus points from Naruto, as he was often invited to their parties. The Akimikis have always an excuse for a large banquet and celebrate no matter how small the reason was. They were a happy clan and are very generous, thus the reason the blonde really liked them. Since most of their professions revolved around food, hence they own many restaurants. From time to time, whenever they see Naruto, they invite him over for a meal, giving the boy even better impression of them. It seems the Hulk also had no problem, neither, since he appeared a few times in the middle of a few of their parties. Everyone had quietened down just to see what it would do. The Hulk just kept eating and ignored them. One Akimichi didn't realize the situation and patted him in the back. He was rewarded with a punch to the wall. Everyone had a good laugh because of it, and continued to party, and the Hulk just joined them merrily, even though it didn't understand why. Besides, the Akimichis all like a bit of bash once a while, and the Hulk seemed to get along well with them. Of course, there were a few occasional growls at whoever tries to take his meat. He fit in quite well with them, as most of them were like that. The clan head's son Choji was a fine example. Normally the kid was both gentle and shy, but when it came to the last chip, he did fight toe and nail for it. Hence, for the rest of the Akimichis, they were amused at the fact that someone smaller were not afraid of their bigger size. Not only did the Hulk not back down, it also had the guts to face them head-on. Often the Akimichis are viewed as strongest clan in the village, and it is a challenge when one can match them in both power and strength. Other clans like the Hyugas too were changed since their last encounter. Since the battle, many cases were brought up to the clan meeting that forces them to deviate from tradition. At first, the elders wouldn't budge, but with later reports revealing that the Snake Sannin were involved, they had to reconsider. Knowing the Snake Sannin, they wouldn't be surprised if he already had an army of Hulks. Should another battle occur and the Hyugas couldn't do a thing to defend the village, they can kiss their noble status goodbye. The clan is only prestigious only if they can deliver. Therefore, this episode with the Hulk was their changing point. They've already witnessed what the Hulk can do, even if the Snake Sannin can't make another Hulk because he had no Jinchurikis. There is no doubt he could make something similar. Orochimaru didn't get on the most wanted list because he was just a Sannin. He was also both brilliant and resource. Hence, the reason why Konoha had put him on high alert list and Jiraiya's network were to focus on him. This was also the reason the Hyugas start looking into elemental jutsus and possible elemental jukins. Thanks to this logic, Hayashi found out his elder daughter had water element instead of the usual earth like every other members of the clan. It was later found out that jukins were designed for earth alignment. There were a few cases of Hyugas having problems with their style, but the elder thought it was only a matter of talent, thus neglected the involvement of element affinity. Unsurprisingly, his daughter Hinata had very high water affinity, thus making her learning their art extremely difficult. Since the death of his brother, Hayashi had neglected many things, but thanks to this incident they all got their wake-up call. Hence he was quite glad of the Hulk's rampage, which gave them the opportunity to rethink not only their strategies but of their traditions. They may not have a solution yet, but it is a start for the Hyugas. The other Anbu members too wanted a rematch, but the Hokage forbid them because Naruto was still not able to control the transformations yet. So the most they can do is to talk about it. It is how Naruto get to heard more about his alter ego. In the beginning, Naruto was a little depressed because he got turned into a monster, but after talking to other ninjas he thought otherwise. Like they said, a ninja must use every advantage they have, and the Hulk is a great asset, thus no exception. Thanks to this, the Hokage allowed his ninjas to talk about the event freely. Besides, it was no secret his entire elite forces lost badly battling one single opponent. People bound to talk about it even if his ninja doesn't. He already have past events to prove it, and the QB was a good example. On the other hand, talking about it helped Naruto jog his jumbled memory while he was Hulk. As the doctors that cross-examined him had said, they were always the same person, therefore it is likely they will eventually remember their alter ego. They also had a theory. Naruto, or the Hulk, cannot remember each other's actions, was only because of the transformation. His brain needs to adjust to the transitions and decode the different signals, then they can become one again. Based on the Hulk's behavior, it was his primitive instinct without a purpose. It makes sense: when attacked, it will retaliate, and when hungry, it will eat. Besides, with so many Hulk stories floating around, it might gives the boy some positive incense to try to reach out to his other half. Of course, no one knows how he can do it. The good doctors believe if anyone can do it, only Naruto himself would know. There had never been a case such as he. Thus it will be up to the boy to control that power or avoiding it entirely. As for Naruto, he was in awe of his alter ego, as everyone he talks to said it was so powerful that it's almost unstoppable. From time to time, he hear only good things from Anbus that fought or seen the Hulk in action, and nearly all the ninjas too were happy to tell their own versions of it. Seeing that it was Naruto that transformed into it, they were more eager to tell him about their own encounters. The more Naruto hears its deeds, the more he admires it, especially when each ninja tells different versions of it. Just as Hayate had predicted, his actions in the incident were always brought up for comedy reasons. Not only was he the reason for the increased casualties, they even had to dig him out from under the tree. Aside from that, the more time Naruto spent with Konoha ninjas, the more the Hulk seemed familiar with them and wouldn't attack on sight. Too bad the missing nins didn't have that pact, and were forced to fight or running for their lives. Of course, they wouldn't get far from an enraged Hulk and end up like puppets in its hands. Even hardened nins could not escape from the shock of the initial transformation. Nevertheless, fight it. The Hulk can have that effect on you. You either transfixed on the shape that slowly grows into a towering giant, only realize you should had ran. By the time the Hulk is out, it is always too late. Everyone were like dwarves when facing the Hulk, and the problem was they start feeling they don't have enough dwarfs. They need hell a lot more. By the time the Anbus arrived, some begged to be taken away from the monster, as they would do anything just to be released. It didn't help matters worse, as the Anbus responded that they can't command it, so they had to wait until it is bored of them. The ninjas in its hand thought they were joking, but sadly it looked that way. Some Anbus suggested they play dead. It didn't make the matter any better. All the Konoha Anbus knew any normal conventional weapons, as well as jutsus, are useless against the Hulk. In fact, there is nothing to date that could stop the Hulk or even to slow it down. The best you can do is something that could take his attention from you. So they can only sympathize them, as they too went through the same boat. In the end, they gave up everything and all information just not to be near the Hulk. If they have to honest, the Hulk is like a ninja version of the bogeyman, only he's the deal. Konoha's last battle with the Hulk, they were lucky because they had 300 elites and good teamwork. It didn't really stop the giant, but their numbers took away a lot of the pressure from each other, as well as its attention. With the exception of Hayate, because he brought it on himself for showing off. Another fact was, the Hulk was not really trying to kill them, he was just mostly annoyed because of the crowd of ninjas, and most of all, angry. They were very lucky, as they still haven't seen the real when he is really angry. For anyone who's stupid enough to irk the Hulk, they should pray no one is around to witness it or in its way. During interrogation, if one can call it that, their prisoner didn't even want to leave their cell. After some heavy convincing and threat of bringing the giant back, they told their interrogators everything only to shove them out and closing the steel door on them. Little did they know that the steel door would have been worthless if the Hulk really want to get in. For the sake of their peace of heart and their prison, the interrogator didn't tell them that truth. Looks like the Hulk is giving them some lasting impressions. Maybe he could learn a thing or two from the Hulk, thinks Ibiki. Not only did they willing to give their village information as well as their employer, whom in fact is one of the counselors, and he was also selling information outside of the village. Overall, the Hawkage is quite pleased at the outcome. Seems like the Hulk is already gaining a reputation. It will only be a rumor for now, but who knows what happens later. There had been a few other cases of nuke nin involvements, but they were all taken care of before they begun. As Hulk, Naruto can go anywhere as it wants, but with a few Ambu trailing him from a distance. The big guy may be quite invincible so far, but it seems to like to spend time on its own. Maybe it was just as Naruto had explained, he transforms when he was angry, thus maybe it's a way for it to calm down. While ninjas inside the village knew him well, but unfortunately foreign and nuke nins weren't. One time when the giant returning through the gate, the guard was quite surprised when they thought they saw a ninja under one of his foot, as it seems that the poor ninja had tried to ambush the blonde only be stepped on as he transforms into the Hulk. He had to be hospitalized before taken to interrogation. No one thought he was lucky as literary. All his bones were broken, as well as his face rearranged. They didn't even know who he was until he gave them his name. Since then, the gate guards had to scan the big guy's foot from each of his return trips. It is a good thing now that the Hulk recognizes them and do as they say. But there is still some miscommunications, as it still have a hard time understanding the words. Like the good doctor had said, both Naruto's body and brain had undergone a transformation, thus needs time to adjust. However, if they ask nicely and showing him what they want, the Hulk would follow through. Anyway, there have been a few bets to see if they would ever catch any more Nukanins that way. Just for the record, they did find another, but he was stuck on the giant's back. It seems he was crushed as he was trying to ambush the guy. The Hulk must be either flatten him by taking a nap or leaning on something. Since then, there had been a few more bets going what the Hulk brought back next. Even the Hokage was in the bet while the ninja's sweat dropped. Of course, the Ambus were the ones to report what happened and found more ninjas where the Hulk had been. From what they saw, both Naruto and the Hulk worked quite well in both bodies. As Hulk, he was near invincible. However, the Hokage was more worried for his young grandson figure. Anyway, even as Naruto, the shock of ninja's attack would just turn him straight to his other half, so he was never in danger. One time they tried to ambush the kid and jumped him only to be caught by the giant's fists. The Nukenin freaked as he saw his target between the fingers of the green giant. Of course, his scream were fairly inaudible since the Hulk's hand were covering his entire face. Then what followed was relatively short. The Nin panicked and the Hulk got irritated and tossed him into the tree, knocking him out. There were few more cases as ninjas just pop out of nowhere and start attacking the giant. Reasonable assumption was they were spooked and tried to take him down first, only to fail miserably. Many managed to get through the giant's defenses but could not overcome the shock that it did nothing. A few acted like the Konoha team and threw jutsus from a distance, but they too were taken out by the Hulk's charge. Even a handful managed to dodge out of its way, but the clothesline finished them off. Seeing most of its enemies unresponsive, the Hulk just went his merry way. As for these ninjas, they were already rounded up and in hospital. The guards can only sympathize. Poor bastards. In the list, there was also Iwa Nins as they tried to defend themselves with earth after earth. Jutsus only to be pulverized by the giant. The poor guy was in mental hospital as he holed himself up in the room, begged not to be released. Of course, this does not stop Anko. She took her job a little too serious for others' taste. They can still remember the first victim of the Hulk, and her first question was, how does it feel to be treated like dirt? She also mentioned that the big guy did not even know he was under his foot. Whether it was true or not, the Nukenin already felt like laughing stock, and Anko didn't seem to be stopping there. It seems there will be a new form of interrogation as they find new ways to ask questions that was more humiliating, and Anko is leading. Once the Hokage felt the Hulk is safe enough to join the academy, Naruto is then allowed to return back to regular classes. While he misses his friends, Naruto too understood why his grandfather figure wanted him to take some time out, and he fully agreed. With his alter ego going on rampage from time to time, it is not good to have him cooped up indoors. Aside from bringing the building down, everyone will also be trapped inside the building with no way out. The Hokage had to shrug as he imagined the scene in his head, as well as rest of his bodyguard, ninjas hiding in the room. They too can picture that scene like a nightmare, as they too were there when the big guy had his temper tantrum, and at the time they had a lot of space to get out of its way. Not that the old man is singling Naruto out, he still treated him like a grandson, but the other him still makes him nervous. He can just see it, a hug. Naruto is no big deal, but one from the Hulk, he did be lucky to get away with a broken back. Other than the obvious reason, the Sandaime also wanted him to get used to the transformation and try reaching out for the other. Him. At least try to connect so the Hulk would not be a loose cannon and go on another rampage. From what he can see in conclusion of the major council meeting, they can only let the Hulk do as it want. Hence the Hawkage addressed the village that no ninja will come to their aid if anyone provokes the giant. So, for the past 6 months, Naruto just wandered around the village while his classmates went on with the academy. While Naruto calls them friends, they were in fact better known as associates because none of them went their ways to find him while he was absent from class. Hence, the reason why none of his classmates knew anything about him, nor his condition. Of course, there were gossips on the Green Giant's rampage, but no one thought it would have anything to do with a dead last and attention-grabbing idiot. While many villagers knew about his transformation, but they mainly refer him as the Green Giant or the Hulk. No one would say Naruto transformed into the Hulk again. It is normally the Hulk reappear showed up again. Hence, unless you were directly involved, it was no surprise anyone couldn't connect a 3-foot child to a 12-foot Hulk or vice versa. Thus, when Naruto finally returned back to the academy, his first transformation shocked the entire class. The teachers Iruka and Mizuki too were speechless. Seeing the real thing was more intimating than what the report says. It was like an Akimichi doing their expansion jutsu right in the middle of the already small classroom. In fact, the room was only small because of the huge Hulk. The damn giant is at least twice the height of Iruka and nearly 3 times as wide as him. He stood out like a giant baby, stuffed in a classroom of kids as he tried to look as small as he can. Thankfully, the Hulk only felt a little embarrassed, as well as annoyed that the place was so small. Another incident happened as he was called for an academy spar, and Mizuki was his opponent. Mizuki tried to show that size doesn't matter, but sadly his demonstration did not went as he had envisioned. Using his Chunin speed, he reappeared behind the Hulk and kicked the back of his knees in hope to bring the giant down. He succeeded, but not in the way he had hoped. Instead, it was like a massive wall that fell on top of him. When the Hulk got back up, Mizuki was gone. Iruka had to sweat drop because his assistant somehow got himself stuck on the giant's back. The occasional twitch showed that he was still alive. As for his classmates, the enormous size of the new and green Naruto is enough to make even the last Uchiha very wary of him. Not only was the dope of the class strong, he towered over their sensei like an adult to a child. He still remembered the other time he walked into the classroom with the door still in his hand. Embarrassed, he handed it to the nearest teacher, which unfortunately was Mizuki, and almost crushed him.